What considerations should a teacher take into account when selecting work sample to include in the portfolio? Work sample selection. Another key decision when planning for portfolio assessment depends on the identification of work samples to include in the portfolios. When we say portfolio, it is the proof of knowledge and skill of a learner wherein he or she gather his or her works. An example of work samples to include in a portfolio is the reports, reflections, journals, and photos of projects, artworks, documents, and many more. For as long as it can be compiled, it is considered as a portfolio work. Divergency. Entries in the portfolio should show variety in work samples, which means that a teacher should engage learner to different kind of activities such as doing artwork, making journals, reflections, making stories, and so on that would engage their cognitive. After all, portfolio is a documentation of a learner's progress. But the teacher shouldn't search for varied kinds of work samples simply for the sake of variety. What's important is that the kinds of work samples to be included should allow you to make valid inferences about the skills or knowledge your students should master. So the portfolio is just an instrument to be used to measure the ability of the mind of a learner. So of course, as a teacher, it is our duty to let our learners learn knowledge, and through portfolio, we can make valid inferences of the work of a learner. We can measure how well they perform inside the classroom and how reliable the teaching strategies of a teacher is. Moreover, the teacher can evaluate the learner's work through portfolio.
What do classroom teachers really need to know about portfolio assessment? Portfolio assessment almost always fundamentally changes a teacher's approach to instruction. The more familiar you are with different kinds of assessment methods, the more likely you'll be able to select a method that best provides you with the information you need in order to draw suitable inferences about your students. Should be central, not tangential. If the goal is to make portfolio assessment a helpful supplement to a teacher's instructional program, it should be focused or centralized, and not just slightly or indirectly related to something. Primary premise in portfolio assessment. A particularized detailed collection of a student's evolving work will allow both the student and you to determine the student's progress. So portfolio assessment will also help teachers to assess their teaching strategies through the student's progress by making portfolios. Remember, you can't gauge or judge the student's progress if you don't have frequent evidences of the student's effort. Educationally unwise to select portfolio assessment as a one-time measurement approach to deal with short-term instructional objective. It makes more sense to select some key curricular aims and then monitor this aspect of the student's learning throughout the entire school year. It is also important for you to recall that although portfolio assessment may prove highly valuable for classroom instruction and measurement purposes, installing portfolio as an assessment strategy offers your students and you a way to particularize your evaluation of each student's growth over time. So it's only appropriate to remind you, it takes substantially more time to use portfolio assessment approach properly than to score a zillion true or false tests. Lastly, to use portfolio assessment properly, reflect whether in your own instructional situation, it yields sufficient educational benefits to be worth the investment you surely need to make in it. So the first big question you need to ask yourself when it comes to portfolio assessment is quite simple. Is this powerful but time-consuming form of assessment right for what I am trying to teach? So let's answer the question on what consideration should a teacher take into account when selecting work samples to include in the portfolio. Work samples have to be chosen, scoring rubrics need to be developed, and students need to be taught how to use those rubrics to monitor the evolving quality of their efforts. Portfolio assessments are truly dominates most instructional programs in which it is employed. Also, if it's properly focused on helping students improve by being able to evaluate their own work samples, become a continuing and central component of a teacher's instructional program. The first thing you need to decide is to whether the knowledge and skills you are trying to have your students master, especially the skills, lend themselves to portfolio assessment.